Armada Book for Chapter 9 The Rock Part 1. After 2 days, Andrew and the Armada arrived near Eric's area. Andrew had 2,200 ships, 300 supply ships and 480 hop ships, all reconditioned Tosban ships. They have continued Tony's task of laying the double line of hop ships along the way. They made sure that all of the hop ships were hidden in or near the planets. Andrew invited Eric's leaders for a briefing at the mission room. Congratulations Eric, Roger, Linda, Lachine, Ono, Keelmill, Hilm, Poom and the rest of you guys for a job very well done. Andrew said. They all thanked Andrew. Bronny and the other Maccabee commanders congratulated them as well. Then Andrew told them to take a seat. Ellie started, we found out some very interesting and troubling information from our encounters so far. The biggest concern is the planet destroyer weapon system. The technology involves the use of very intense laser from 6 special ships created and equipped mainly for the purpose. I believe this should be our top priority. We can only hope they do not use these on a planet with people on it before we can destroy them. Olive produced a hologram of the 4th colony. Ellie continued, the 4th colony spans 6 galaxies and has 480 Maccabee planets and 295 of these were taken over by the Imperial forces. End to end it's 270 MLY. This does not include the other aliens with a small number of planets and taken over by the Imperial forces. Gantley stood and, we also found out about their deployment. The 28,800 or so ships are divided into 4 major groups and a group of outpost ships. These are the 4 major groups represented by the 4 blue blinking lights. These outpost ships are ships in groups of 10 scattered in over 200 locations around the 4th colony. These are the 200 yellow blinking lights. These do not include their listening outposts where no ships are involved but ground observers. There are ongoing cat and mouse battles in this area here between the 4th colony forces under Commander Sind and Commander Boln, the top Maccabee commanders and the Imperial forces. The Maccabees have only 8,000 remaining ships battling 12,000 ships in the area. It is possible the Maccabees will win but lose half of their ships. After several battles, they will have no more ships to fight with. Gantley nodded to Rabina and sat. Rabina stood up, the virus the Armada scientists created was an outstanding success. It stopped the ships quickly. The recent encounters will lead to a better designed virus that will be able to counter the known countermeasures of the enemy. It will be ready in 2 days. We are also developing a more insidious virus that will infect their command and control communications and equipment. Their wave patterns are worlds apart different from ours and we realized we can create the worst virus we can develop, send it out and it will not affect our ships. They will not be able to counter this for months on end. This will be deployed in 2 days as well. We hope that this virus will be able to mess up the planet destroyers. Gaddon stood and, early on Andrew asked for spy volunteers from the Max and as usual, millions applied. We selected 500,000 including 20,000 team leaders. The intention is really to send them way ahead of our ships in our usual pods operated by the Norsets. They will operate in groups of 100 each. They would mingle with the populace and will gather intel from the other Max. The second objective here is to identify where the leaders are and if possible tag all of them. Their third objective is to tag all the primary and secondary leaders they can find, civilian or military. They will try to get on board the ships to do this. They would be bringing more than 5,000 portable TPs, or 1 TP per group of 100, to be able to beam to the ships and places they want to be. The TPs will make their work faster and cover a larger area. All their intel will be communicated through the drone system back to us. They will leave in 10 hours. As for the rest of the Armada, we would be staying put for 2 days, maybe 3 days tops to finish with our information gathering from all the ships you guys got. We also need to read the minds of the rest of the crew. Ellie concluded. I read in the Norset analysis that the Imperial Army have established alliances with 2 traditional Maccabee enemies. What about these groups? Andrew asked. Tonin answered, yes, my people first got this intel from the first encounter. This was confirmed by the intel we got from the 10,000 ships. What their data systems are saying is that 2 alien groups, the Marsons and the Greenos, as they call them, have dispatched ships to help in the war. We figured from the size of the 2 alien armadas that at least 10,000 ships were dispatched by each of them and the primary mission was to engage the last remaining fleet. Slaves would be their payment for the assistance. Traditionally, the 2 alien groups have never seen eye to eye with the Maccabees primarily because these 2 are very violent and are really a warrior species. They were kept in check because they were fighting against each other. Now the Imperial Army was able to talk them into cooperating for the meantime to defeat the last armada of the Maccabees. The slaves would prevent future war between the 2 because now they have people to serve their species. Gaddon explained. When we dispatched the probes further out, at 1 BLY away, they found nothing within their scanning range. Lachine said. Maybe we should move them further out. Maybe 2 BLY away. We know where their galaxies are, maybe they will take their usual route. Eric said. I believe that would be best, Eric. Lachine said. Sarudam stood up beside Lachine and, I would like to personally invite all of you to Manpat chain of casinos as soon as we get back. We will assure you that you will have the best time of your life. He got a lot of jeers from the audience. Lachine slapped his shoulder hard and Sarudam laughed it off. Yes sir, he also went through the Crimson. Ellie whispered to Andrew. I thought you can tell the Crimson to not make you a comedian. Yes, the Crimson asks that, but apparently he didn't mind. Okay, for the serious part of this audience, as you know, we have decided to set up a midway base for our Armada and support people about 800 MLY from the 4th colony galaxies. All our supply and non-combat ships will be stationed. This will be where we need to do anything that concerns ground troops, repairs, utilities, support operations, etc. The Armada has over 1 million Inky troops, 2 million Talonot troops, 1 million human troops, 2 million Max and 1 million Norsets who will operate the attack drones. Less than a third of them are in 200 ships that are on the way here and will be here in 2 days. The rest are in our ships. Sarudam reported. Andrew stood up. Okay, you guys must come out with a plan to deal with the wayward Maccabee. I want to eliminate their leaders, capture all their ships intact, minimize the loss of Maccabee life and destroy their planet destroyers. Are you not going to coordinate with the Maccabee leadership? Hilm asked. That would put all our efforts at risk. Linda said. The idea is to operate without anybody knowing that we are even there. None should know except those of us doing it. Okay, lunch is on me. Andrew explained. They all headed to the mess hall. Andrew, what if the Maccabee forces think you're the enemy? Bronny asked. They might, if they see us at all. As I said, the idea is to operate without anybody knowing we are there. Andrew answered. The mess hall was half empty, quiet and relaxed. As usual, all the alien groups were there, even the Trunties were quietly sitting with the other aliens. Sungun, the leader of the Trunties, was talking and laughing with Ari and Debbie as they sat together in one table with Rabina, Sarudam, Tonan and Roger. Ellie and Lachine were busy talking about dresses in another table with Linda, Andrew, Keelmill and Bronny. Eric and Gadden sat with Poom, Ono, Rebecca and Gantley. Olive beamed their favorite onto the table so they would not have to fall in line and can start eating. Midway, while they were eating, Lachine and Ellie stood and went over to the counter to see anything new that they might like. Lachine saw some beef tongue and got some. Ellie settled for several types of sushi. She was explaining to Lachine what they were when suddenly Lachine fell on her knees, spilling the food in front of her. Ellie was quick to hold her right arm while holding her tray of food. Lachine tried to stand, but her knees were weak. She knelt for a few seconds and tried again. I felt so many people die. Lachine turned her face to Ellie. It was pale white, even her lips lost their color. Then the ship alarm sounded and all the Macs in the mess hall fell on their knees and started banging their heads on the floor. Except for the banging of the Macs and the ship alarm, everybody was quiet. Linda stood up and helped move Lachine to a chair beside Andrew. What's happening, Ellie? Andrew asked. Sir, Lachine has one of her cold flashes again, and Crimson read her mind and had very clear images of the event. Lachine may not have seen the whole of it, but she just felt it and saw some. Now Crimson made the images clearer for all the telepaths. What? Sir, the enemy destroyed a planet with more than 2 billion inhabitants. Andrew banged on the table and stood up quickly. Oh my God. It was not normal for Andrew to react this way, and Roger and Eric both stood up and ran over to Andrew. Normally Andrew is always calm and cool even under the worst dangers. 2 billion, dead. Andrew shouted. Then he saw Linda had tears in her eyes as with the other humans around them. Some were openly weeping. Then he saw Sungun join a group of Trunties. They huddled quietly together closely and embraced each other. He saw Bronny embrace Hilm and then move to Poom. Olive appeared before Andrew. Andrew, the Crinsons are very much upset. The Trunties are telling me that they have never imagined they and the Crinsons could be this upset, angry and sad. The whole Armada is affected. Is Lachine all right, Ellie? Andrew asked. Her color is back. She gave her a glass of water. The ship alarm stopped, but the blue light remains. Ellie, what's with the hazy blue light in the ship? Sir, we're invisible like the Crinsons and Trunties. Andrew sat down and continued to eat quietly. Some of the people started to disappear. Some walked out quietly. In a few minutes only Andrew, Roger and Eric were left in the mess hall quietly eating. Sometimes I wonder if it would be better to be telepathic and able to feel and see what the event was. Andrew said. Boss, it would be a real problem if all our people see and feel these traumatic events. To feel the trauma several times a month for years on end. They either become too stressed and go nuts or become completely indifferent to these traumatic events. Roger said. Eric added, to protect their sanity, people would do that. So which is better to start with? Boss, it would be better not to be able to see and feel these traumatic events unless you are in it, and in which case you cannot avoid it. Roger said. The Crimson could provide the solution. Remember, they feel these too, and that the Trunties feel these events also. They must have a coping mechanism. Eric conjectured. We have been through a lot. A lot of evil. I guess, it wouldn't hurt to have a few more shots of evil. So far I see strong people. But maybe not all are equally strong. And maybe the Crimson can help. Olive, remind me to talk to Ellie about this. Andrew said. Olive appeared. Ellie's people have done a study on possible trauma syndromes among alien species, including humans, brought about by the evil they have gone through. Her conclusion was that the Bofeng seemed to cope the best, and they had been through the worst evil that can happen to a species. And when people see and get to know about this, it helps them cope. The trauma of their friends make them strong when they see their friends are strong. I guess it could be in our genes. Andrew said. As in the genes of all species. Roger seconded. Olive, can you beam a bottle of brandy please? Eric said. The next 2 days were busy days. More than usual. And more quiet than usual. After another day, Olive, why is the hazy blue light still on? Andrew asked. We're all invisible like the Crimsons and Trunties, like the rest of the Armada. Why did the Crimsons suddenly made us invisible? They are protecting the Armada. They felt fear for us in our work. They asked Ellie if she would want them to remove the invisibility, and she asked them if it is easy for them to do so. They told her it is really very easy, and so she asked them to continue until we finish our work or if we tell them to. And they agreed with Ellie and told her that it is much easier for them to make all the Armada invisible than hypnotizing the enemy. Ellie and Sun Gun appeared before Andrew. Sir, Sun Gun would like to ask you if you would permit them to use the pods to go ahead of the Armada to do some of the work of the Max. It's too dangerous. They can participate in the tagging and whatever, when we are within beaming range. Andrew, I want you to know that we will help you to the best of our abilities. Now we understand what you do, and we felt so sad about the planet. You may not be able to understand or imagine it, but we have never felt this sad since we and the Crimsons can remember. We would like to help right what was wrong. A lot of your crew have been very angry. We have felt their anger and their sadness for the past 3 days, and we believe we are now closer to your people than we have ever been since we started. Crimson also provided some solution to the trauma by teaching everyone in the Armada to shut the thoughts and feelings out and blanket them as they blanket their thoughts in layers from anybody wanting to read them. Sun Gun said. Sir, the images and feelings were very traumatic. The Max on the planet were able to send to the collective the last few minutes before the planet blew up. Ellie said. Sun Gun added, we have never seen or felt anything like what we felt. We saw and felt what they saw and felt. Maccabees dying in horror, being blown up, mangled. We felt the fire and the pain. We felt their bodies being dismembered, some felt so long while some did not present any pain at all. The instance of death, some slow and some like a slap. We saw the terror in their eyes before they died. We felt being in space slowly dying and saw others slowly dying. It was horrific. Sir, we also know there will be countless planets blown up like this in countless universes. The thoughts and feelings are all beyond our imagination. And we saw snippets of it and felt some of them. The feelings were all incredibly painful. Ellie said. Our resolve is now beyond what we can even imagine. Sun Gun said. Thank you, Sun Gun. Ellie, you have to talk to Sun Gun about what specific abilities do they have that can help us with our work. Sun Gun, tell Ellie anything you think you can do to help us. Sir, one is this invisibility that they do. The Max that left in the pods will be this invisible until the Crimson reverses their cloak back to our regular cloak. Ellie said. And this is good, right? The enemy could never detect them? Andrew asked. Yes, nobody can see them except us. Unless they are as smart as Ellie's group and figure out the combination frequencies. Then they could see a haze. But at long distances, this would be impossible. And if there is only one hazy Mac, it would be impossible to detect. They will remain invisible until we arrive and reverse their invisibility. Sun Gun explained. 15 days before their ETA. Olive appeared beside Andrew. Andrew, the drone probes have reached the 4th colony galaxies and are now taking their positions. Their first priority would be to look for the 6 planet-destroying ships. Lashine's drones have reached their target location near the usual routes to the 2 alien galaxies. Do they know where to hide? Yes, they follow set procedures on how to hide and where. Most of them will reach their intended locations in 10 hours. The next day, at the mission room, all the alien commanders were there except for the Maccabee ship officers who were in their ships fixing things. Andrew told them they would be briefed when they get assigned to their groups. Bronny walked in and sat at the back to observe. Ellie started, "The drones have identified the 6 planet-destroying ships. Olive, please." Olive showed the 4th colony and the 6 blinking lights. There are thousands of smaller lights representing the drone probes. One solar system is colored red. Ellie continued, "The 6 planet destroyers are near this red solar system. This is where that planet was destroyed. It was in this area here. It was the 5th planet from the solar system sun. The planets in this solar system has wobbled and affected by the explosion, and the equilibrium is not there anymore. They would have to compensate, or if not, the solar system has become unstable and may affect this one nearest to it. The fortunate thing is that this nearest solar system is uninhabited. The enemy decided to destroy a planet at the fringes of the galaxy to show their power and avoid affecting their main galaxies which they intend to dominate." Rabina stood up. "Olive, show the schematics of the planet-destroying ship, please." Olive produced a hologram of a tube-like ship, like a hollow telescope. This ship is 1.2 miles wide and 2.4 miles long and 200 feet thick at the larger end. It operates by creating several long and large energy mass inside it and sending this via laser into the target planet. 6 of them will focus this laser energy on a single point in the planet. What will happen is the concentrated laser from 6 ships will dig deep into the planet, and once it reaches just before the outer hard core, the several energy mass from the 6 ships will be delivered into the inside of the planet. It will react with the core, and the sudden explosion of a small portion of the core will obliterate the planet. Rabina explained. Rabina moved nearer Ellie and continued, "Each of these planet-destroyer ships is protected by a dozen ships stationed near it. The tube-like planet-destroying ships has a weak point in their construction. This area here, about a quarter of the length from the rear, is where the electronics are located, pretty much around the tube. We have calculated that 16 of our drones positioned inside the tube at equal distances will basically cut the tube clean, severing a quarter of the tube, thereby destroying the whole structure or at least making it useless." "So how can we bring our drones inside those tube ships without being detected?" Roger asked. "That's where the Crimson comes in. The Norsets operating the drones that are intended to go inside will turn over the control to Crimson, and Crimson will be operating through the Norset. Now before they even reach the galaxies, the drone will turn invisible from their already cloaked state once the Crimson takes over. So basically there are 2 of them flying the drone. The other drones in the other tube ships must all be in position before the Crimson release their invisibility. Now once they are regularly cloaked, the enemy would be able to detect them and destroy them. This will blow our cover. The ideal situation is to blow the drones at the instant the Crimsons remove their invisibility so that the enemy does not scan them and see what they were. They will think their enemies infiltrated their ships and set up explosive devices." Ellie explained. "Now we have long-range sensors to see how the tube ships scan for intruders. The scan starts from the smaller end to the larger end every 30 minutes. Thus once the scan passes, it will not know what hit them because their scans show nothing when it passed a few minutes ago. Imagine the scan wave like a bell distribution but skewed to the left or the forward position like this yellow-colored curve here. The scan waves last for a few minutes, about 5 minutes in front of its height and 10 at the back. So there is a 15-minute window. We would explode the drones midway in this 15 minutes to make sure we hit the minimum scan waves or where there are none." Rabina added. Rebecca stood. "There is a very strong probability that the enemy ships will be able to notice our communications with the drone, so communications with the drone would stop when the scan happens and resume when it passes. We are working on complete automated flight of the drones to their positions so that once they see the tube, the autopilot will kick in and they will deliver themselves where they should be and wait. Once all are in position, Crimson releases them and they explode automatically." Gantley stood, and Andrew and I have come out with preliminary plans. You guys must think about them, and we expect them to be revised as we get nearer and gather more intel. First off, there will be 4 targets. 1 would be their leadership, 2 would be the 4 Imperial Armada groups, and right now they are positioned in 4 areas. There are also 2,000 ships more or less in 200 outpost positions all over the 4th colony. One of these Imperial Armada groups are fighting Bronny's forces in this area here at the opposite end of the 4th colony. Third, we have to deal with their defenses, which will be identified shortly by the drones. Fourth would be to deal with several possible hostage situations as the leaders cling to power. Finally, there is the refugee work. This includes the task that we have to remove the rocks from wherever we find them and ship them back to where they came from or in a safe area, or move all the nearest inhabitants out of range. That's 5. Including the refugee, not 4. Eric said. This started an argument among the people. The refugees are included in the fourth, and this includes ground cleanup and spy operations. Gantley countered. I noticed the 3 enemy Armada groups are positioned, one near the center and one further out near the battle with Brawny's forces. The last one is near the end of the galaxy where the planet exploded. Maybe we should split our forces to deal with the 3 groups. Now the situation for the one fighting Brawny's forces is a bit tricky, and we probably just need to hit them with drones. We can save the ships of the 3 groups we deal with, but not the one fighting. Linda said. We have sent 500,000 max using the pods, and they will arrive 5 days ahead of us at various engagement areas. They were deployed in groups of 100, and each group has a portable TP so they can TP to the nearest ship from a safe and hidden place. They will try to ID the leadership, tag the people, put bombs on the ships. 5 days is a lot of time. But we don't really know what we're dealing with. As we get closer we would know. They will also spy around for any possible threats once we start the fireworks, like hostage situations and so on. Andrew said. We have deployed the upgraded viruses through the drones, and by now they are just there lying dormant in their hosts. They are slowly affecting their ground defenses and all the communication systems, but laying dormant once they set themselves. By the time we arrive their whole systems shall have been compromised. Ellie said. There will always be a clean-up and refugee problem. The scale, we do not know yet, but the drones would tell us. Our double hop lines back to our galaxies are set up as we go, and people will start going through them once we engage the enemy. They will end up at the halfway station about 800 MLY before the galaxies and wait there. From this halfway station, the hop lines will have 2 lines going to areas near the galaxies. After the fighting, we would have to set up in one planet right in the middle so we can beam refugees that need help in a central place. The Midway people will then move to this nearer planet to operate. We hope the locals would help also, but normally we do not expect them to. Sarudam added. Okay, 5 days from now we would have to split the Armada into 4. One group will deal with the Armada group here near the center. Eric and Linda take 800 ships to deal with them. The next group under Tonin with 800 ships also will deal with the other Armada near the center but on the other side. The third group under Gantley with another 800 ships would deal with the third Armada near the tube ships. My group with Sarudam with the remaining 800 or so ships will deal with the fighting groups. Our task is to make sure all the Armada are deactivated at the same time. Once the tube ships explode, the virus will be activated, the bombs on the ships will be activated, and the enemy personnel delivered to a holding planet. We may have to have 3 holding planets because Eric and Linda would be too far. Gantley, you would also be too far, so you would have to look for a holding planet when you get to your area. We would also have our own. Tonin would have his own as well. According to Roger, there are 10 possible routes to take. Each group will take the safest route to their target areas. Andrew discussed. Boss, we would deploy the drones when? Roger asked. 2 or 3 days before you arrive would be a safe bet. We would have to deploy all our drones and get them nearer the enemy. We have 1,800,000 drone operators, and we would deploy more than 2,400,000, so some of the drones would be on standby near the enemy and activated when needed. Andrew answered. I take it we would just destroy the 2,000 outpost ships? Eric asked. We have our areas. If you can save some of those in your areas, send taggers and bomb the ships and move them to the same holding planet you have, then do this. Some of the outposts are way out and beyond your beaming range, so you would have to destroy them with the drones. Before we even reach the areas, the drones are actually near these outposts already ready for the kill. You just have to do the last best effort to save their lives. Andrew answered. The Crimson invisibility is not infallible. If they use combinations, they may see a haze. It is very important that they do not see anything at all before the tube ships explode. After that, we hope we have prepared properly enough to ensure we attain our objectives. Ellie explained. Remember, we do not want a protracted war. We would cut the head, arms and feet as fast as we can. Then we can dissect the body later on. The clean-up, refugee and rock problem we can deal with after we cut the head, arms and legs. We can leave the Maccabees to deal with the remains, but that is not how we work. We are artists and we like our work to be perfect, no loose ends. Andrew concluded. Sarudam got a nod from Andrew. Okay guys, lunch is on me. You can all go to the mess hall. The crowd booed him.